What's going on, guys? It's time for the return of the video power rankings. I've got to apologize. I didn't really know how much you guys love these power ranking videos. You know, it's just something I was kind of doing, and I'm glad that you guys liked them and you wanted to see them come back. I've just been really busy with some personal stuff recently, but it's great to be back. I'm here out in the old bong shed for a classic edition of this power rankings video. We're ready to get right into it. Myself, of course, being known as Clown Nerd around the league. Well, guess what? I'm going McAfee mode today, and we're going to get right into it. Asses will be blasted, believe me. Let's get right into it. Starting with number 14, and I think we all know who this is. JoJo Cunningham, our defending champion. How the tables have turned. The foot is now on the other hand, JoJo. Your team name is back-to-back, but you're going back to whack, as in your whack teams that you've had in years past. You have the lowest points on the season, and fun fact, the only team that has not broken 100 one time this year has been this JoJo squad. I ranked this team really low in my preseason rankings, and I've got a recommendation for you in the name of education of America's children. Boston, another one of our great league members, now a teacher. Congratulations, Boston. What I want you to do, JoJo, I want you to take your roster, I want you to take it into Boston's classroom and show it to the kids to really help them understand the concept of failure. Make sure you have the mental health counselor on standby, because once those kids see Dalvin Cook and Robert Woods in your lineup, they're going to need some mental health counseling, possibly for some severe depression, as they see what it's really like out there once you get into the real world. With that being said, we are going to moving on to the number 13 team in our league, and that number 13 team is Jake Smith, the most overrated team, and you're not going to be finding any extra votes to get you back up in the power rankings. No matter how many times you call me and beg me to find some extra votes, it's not happening, Jake. Your team is a disaster. You didn't change your team name from last year. That should have been my first indication that you weren't up to the task this year. Unbelievable. I think you've picked the wrong quarterback to start in every single game this season. Clearly, the problem with your roster isn't necessarily just the lack of talent. It's poor management at the highest level. The executive decisions, you could say, of your team have not been very good. And I think Pep over in Manchester might have a good idea of some better strategies you can use. You might want to hit him up. He can help you out. Now, with that being said, we're going to move on to the number 12 team in our rankings, and that's Pablo. Pablo. I would be more excited about Cup and JT returning if you hadn't somehow let Dak Prescott be the only quarterback on your roster this season. That is an abysmal management failure. Connor is also going to be missing time, so basically you arguably either didn't add much or possibly regressed at the running back position with Taylor. And the outburst that you had 2 weeks ago is looking more and more like a fluke. That was my personal prediction. Didn't have high hopes for this roster, and it's turning out to be that your team is actually not that good in spite of that problem. Unfortunately, Gabo will probably be pilfering this team like Bernie Madoff pilfered those investments, and it looks like a possible fire sale at the trade deadline will be ensuing with you and Gabo. Now, with that being said, we're going to move on to the number 11 team. Unfortunately, this team had a 1 bye at one point this year. We've added an extra 1 here with Sean Bates. Sean, injuries and underperformance have turned your roster into a paper tiger. Your team is now bad. You have a bad fantasy football team. And I can't tell if your butt hurts more from Nibs trade beef, from Aaron Jones being a pussy, or from you being trade raped by Ajit and giving up DJ Moore basically for arguably nothing with Gibbs' current injury status. The good news is you can get some fentanyl for that asshole pain probably anywhere in downtown Seattle. It's pretty common there, I'm told. Either way, your asshole is as wide as Vince Wilfork's waist right now. Now, with that being said, Sean, we're going to move on and gracefully move to the next team, with league nice guy Boston Monroe here at number 10. Now, I projected that this team had a great chance to be in the number 14 spot, but never underestimate the teachers of America. Boston, they say it's better to be lucky than good, and I think that there was a huge element of luck in your team's performance. Hubbard and Spears were super suspect coming in, possibly the worst RB duo we've seen in this league in a long time on paper. But Spears scampered for a touchdown and saved you, in addition to some incredible performances by the likes of Saints D, among others. If Eckler comes back, I could see this team kind of hanging around, but right now, I'm projecting that you will eventually be sliding back down the rankings. Just don't see you being able to sustain these points, especially since you're still second from the bottom in points scored, I believe, even with this recent win that you've picked up. So with that being said, we're going to move on to the biggest riser of the week, all the way up to number 9, Ajit. You have climbed back, and there's been a couple reasons why. Of course, Jacobs is no longer the worst first-round pick in the league, at least currently with some of the injury status. He's still available, which makes his latest surge very helpful for your cause. And, of course, you added DJ Moore, which is really great. Unfortunately, for Bates, anyway, your trade turned out to be some great poetic revenge from last year's debacle. Also like that Kamara is basically the dump-off king, and Derek Carr, much to the chagrin of Sean as a Chris Olave owner, is only able to dump the ball down very minute distances to Alvin Kamara, which plays right into your hands. Either way, I think that you've improved your roster enough not to make the playoffs, because that ship has basically sailed, but to be competitive down the stretch and possibly play spoiler for any teams that are on the fringe of playoff contention. Now, with that being said, we're going to move on. Chris Hasenheier coming in at number 8. And I'm not sure if I should start calling you Chris Hasenheier or Cliff Kingsbury, because the narrative for your team has been that you can get off to great starts and then you completely collapse at the end of the season. How many years in a row has this been? I seem to remember this happening over and over and over as we've done this power ranking saga, and it's continuing again this year. Right now, you and I are matched up this week, and if you lose and go to 2-4, your playoff chances are going to be really, really affected by that. So you've got to get a win this week. Your team obviously dependent on Lamar Jackson and McCaffrey, and to be honest, Miles Sanders has possibly been the worst player in fantasy football this year by some metrics. I mean, he's just completely AWOL, and there's no signs of coming back for this young man. So you've got a lot of work to do, Chris. McCaffrey and Jackson basically are going to have to carry you, and with Metcalf coming back this week, you've got a chance at receiver. But definitely on the downtrend a little bit here. I need you to turn it around, or you're definitely going to be known from now on as Cliff Kingsbury. Now, moving on to a team that got off to a very bad start, a team that I believed in the preseason, and now you're starting to see why, and that would be Cam Lautenschlager coming in at number 7 on the verge of entering that playoff level ranking. Your team is definitely surging in the right direction, and with one more big week, you should be, borderline top 5. The roster is really good with this Cam team. ETN is a beast, and Hurts is heating up right now, and DeAndre Swift is absolutely crushing it. He is the trendiest Swift right now. If it were any other year, unfortunately, the Swift parade has gone a different direction this year, unfortunately, for DeAndre. So not going to get that pub, but he's still scoring plenty of points for you. So with that being said, we're going to move on into this playoff territory of the rankings. And at number 6, coming off a very high hot streak that came to an end, would be Lester. Lester, you and Nibs were kind of neck and neck for this 5-6 spot, but unfortunately, I'm going to have to give you a managerial penalty for not starting Goff this year. I mean, basically, your quarterback room is looking disastrous, and then you have a chance to start Goff against a terrible Panthers team, and then you absolutely fucked it completely up. These are the types of decisions that good fantasy managers like Nibs, who is ahead of you, he makes these good decisions. And the guys at the top of the list, we make those type of decisions. You, on the other hand, you're still getting in there. You're a young kid. you got potential, but you got a lot of work to do, Lester, with something like that. Basically, your only upside right now that still keeps me believing in this team as a playoff team is your wisdom in investing in the 49ers offense, which has proven to be one of your best decisions. And also having A.J. Brown on your team doesn't hurt very much either. Your team, I was thinking about it, since you're such a big soccer fan, you like my soccer facts, really reminded me of England's 2006 World Cup team. Really lots of potential, but underperforming due to managerial failures and lack of a clutch team, which I think kind of sums up the way things have gone for you so far. With that being said, we're going to move into the top 5, and obviously I kind of spoiled this. We've got Nibs here at number 5. Nibs, your scoring is mid, if not below average. I'm just going to be straight up with you because, love to give you that heart-to-heart. That being said, you've grinded. Hopefully this kind of thirsts that your quenches your thirst for validation in these power rankings. I know you probably want to be higher, and you're going to be telling me why all these teams that have scored more points than you should be below you. So I'm looking forward to hearing those arguments. I like a lot of the players on your team. I think that there's been a variety of reasons that you haven't scored as well as you could have. That's why I'm kind of tending to believe your team. You got a solid floor, I will say that. Your floor has been looking good so far this year. No complete calamities, but we got to have you start popping off a little bit in order to get you up into that upper top 4, top 3 conversation. So with that being said, we're going to move into the top 4. Brennan, speaking of wide assholes and assholes hurting, I don't know how many horseshoes and rabbit's feet you had to shove up there to get your schedule this year, but your points against has been laughable this year. It is absolutely incredible. Now, the good news for your team, and one of the reasons why I still ranked you number 4, is that Joe Burrow is finally looking like he might be getting in sync. That could have just been the Cardinals' defense. Brock Purdy looked great against them, and so have several other quarterbacks this year. Even Daniel Jones, for example, had his lone good game of the season against that football team. So I'm not sure if Burrow's technically back, but it looks like he is, so I'm going to give you the benefit of the doubt, and I think Burrow is really good. So you're 5-0. Normally I'd have a team like that number 1 in the rankings, but you're like 7th or maybe 8th in points for this year. So it's just, I'm not going to give you all that credit for those wins when your points against has been so low. With that being said, it's top 3 time. This is where the cream is going to start to rise to the top. And right now here at number 3, Solly, a man who really is the good guy of the league. He's kind of the hero. He's the one that people want to win. Gets the preseason hype every year. Knows what he's doing. Last year didn't really do the waiver wire so well, and it cost him big time. But Solly's kind of the good guy. We've got some villains up here. Obviously, me being one of them as the mean power rankings guy. You know how it is. But Solly's got a couple of things going for him. First of all, he's basically better than any QB that Lester has started all season in terms of his football talent. He also has a roster that's filled with premier talent. And one of the guys that nobody, and I mean nobody, really saw coming this year is this emergence of Kyren Williams, who you picked up. That has been really good, and it's really kind of made the difference between last year, when last year you didn't really hit on any of your waiver wire guys and slowly kind of deteriorated as the season went on. I like this team to be right there at the end, and I just want to keep congratulating you because, for one thing, the league is counting on you to dispel a couple of the villains of the league here at the top of the list. All right, with that being said, we're moving up to a guy who's embroiled in controversy seemingly constantly, and that is Gabo McGregor at number 2. Had to fall down after a kind of a listless performance, but I really still think that this guy is right there. Could have been number 1 still, but facts are facts. Okay, he's just not. Just didn't get it done last week, and he could be right back up at number 1 after next week's games. But I really like the roster. Jefferson injury, unfortunate, but I think you can kind of cruise and overcome it. You've got some wins in the bank, so that is really good. Najee not cutting it. Now you had to give him up. So your running back depth, Demercado, you just picked him up. I know you're very excited about that. see how it goes. Not really willing to overhype the Demercado pickup, considering this guy is an undrafted rookie, and we don't really know how effective he's actually going to be for the Cardinals football team. With that being said, Gabo, congratulations on everything you've done so far, and we'll see how things go for you this week. And now, number one in the league power rankings, of course, it could only be one. It could only be one. And I got a message for all the haters here. I'm the best. I'm the best guy in this league right now. My team has performed clearly, unobjectively, better than any other team in this league. It's just facts. I've got 40 additional points to everyone else. Look, there's a new sheriff in town right now. I'm on a 3-game heater. If I beat Chris this week, that's 4-2, and that's going to give me a great shot, okay? And know that you guys are Seahawks fans and that you struggle with objective facts. But right now, it's just no question who the number one team in this fantasy football league is, and it's me. And I'm looking forward to overcoming A-Chain's injury. And I will say this to end the power ranking video. To parody the great Dick Vermeil, God rest his soul, we will rally around Raheem Mostert, and we will play good football. Thank you very much, guys. Peace be with you, and I'll see you next week.